Hi there, this is Teresa Eicher with Counseling and Wellness Services. We are in partnership with Jill Holgrave Wellness Consulting. And I just come to you today after a few days of nice weather out there. And my hope is that you've had the opportunity to get out there and just enjoy a walk, enjoy a bike ride, enjoy some time, out in nature. We've really had a few beautiful days of weather, and we've spent a lot of time at the park and riding our bike these last few days in our household. So hopefully you have had an opportunity to do that. Today, I want to take a little bit of time and just talk with you about the significance of 20 minutes. So many times, and I know that you guys had a handout this past week, and this idea of short opportunities to work out, short opportunities to exert energy, and just the relevance and benefit of that. And I think many times when we think about self-care, when we think about working out, doing something that's going to benefit our mental health or our physical health, a lot of times we think that we have to do these long, drawn-out workouts, these long, drawn-out coping mechanisms or activities. And what I really find is that that's oftentimes not the case. We can benefit from 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even 20 minutes of just activity and engaging in a healthy coping skill. So just kind of looking at how is it that we are intentional with the tool that we're utilizing, and how is it that we maximize that tool. And I think a lot of times people think that when we become dysregulated, that we somehow then have to do this long, drawn-out thing to help us reestablish regulation. And, there certainly are times where our dysregulation hits such a point to where, we do have to implement greater coping skills. We do have to take more time. But a lot of times what I encourage people to do is think about their distress level. And when you look at your distress level, think of it on a continuum of a 1 to 10 scale. So I say, 1 is cool as a cucumber, no stress, we are completely regulated. 10 being, I'm so dysregulated that, I've moved into fight, flight, freeze. So I might be having a panic attack. I might be, removing myself from situations because they're too intense. I might be engaging in fighting behavior with people, whether that's verbal fighting, physical fighting, whatever that may be. And just being very intentional about, as you navigate your day, checking in with yourself and just asking yourself, where am I at on this 1 to 10 distress scale? And a lot of times what we'll find is that there are specific times in our day as we engage in it that we have moments where we blip up on the distress scale. So maybe that is, getting our kids around in the morning for school. Maybe that is dealing with morning traffic. Maybe that is, dealing with a certain coworker at a certain time of day. But this idea that many times, again, we have, these kind of predictable moments that are in our routine that create dysregulation. And so rather than, just kind of putting our head down and plowing through it, or, having an outburst or whatever that might be in those moments, but thinking about, okay, as I'm moving up the distress scale, what is it that I can do to be intentional to not pop over that 5 on the distress scale? So I always say to people, once you've hit the 5, you've really kind of moved into the tipping point, and now we're on our way up. And it becomes much more difficult to bring ourselves back down. But if we can navigate our day and do some mini check-ins with ourselves throughout the day at key moments, a lot of times what we can do is we can identify oh, I've moved up, I've moved to a 3, or I've moved to a 4, and what is it that I can do now in this moment to reestablish regulation down at those lower numbers? And that can be, 10 deep breaths. it can be that simple. It can be, okay, I'm going to reestablish regulation here. I'm going to take 10 deep breaths, be really intentional in breathing out of my gut, taking that full breath in and releasing it out. Okay, I'm going to notice what I'm saying to myself right now. As we become dysregulated, we oftentimes have a narrative that we are saying to ourselves. So maybe I'm sitting in traffic and I'm thinking to myself, these people are so stupid. If they could just go faster, I don't know what's wrong with them, and I'm just saying negative things about other people. Or maybe I'm, creating a panic in myself where I'm like, I'm never going to get them dropped off in time. I'm never going to get myself to work in time. I'm going to be late. I'm going to have X, Y, and Z consequences. The truth is that none of that self-talk actually makes people go faster. It just really creates more of a panic inside for us. And so, honing in and paying attention to, what am I saying to myself in this moment? Am I saying to myself, okay, I'm going to do the best that I can in the moment that I've got. I'm going to be as efficient as I can, but there are a lot of uncontrollables here. So I can only do and manage the controllables, right? And so as we take control of that, as we engage in deep breathing, what we tend to find is that our system then moves out of that escalating state and is okay, let's get more rational about this. Let's, move out of that emotional state and really think about, okay, what are my controllables here? What can I actually do? And we move more into a problem-solving space and a more regulated space. So just kind of thinking about, as I move up that distress scale, how do I catch myself moving up? And that a lot of times that's really just more internal internal cues that are going on. So a lot of times I'll use the example of maybe going to the bathroom and how we potty train our kiddos. How do we know that we need to go to the bathroom? Our body gives us internal signs indicating that we need to go. And so as we move on the distress scale, our body also gives us internal signs that we're escalating in distress. And so just identifying your own cues that indicate you're moving up that distress scale, and then taking the time to pause in whatever it is that we're doing, take some deep breaths, check in with that self-talk, move it into some more positive self-talk that's not so panic-inducing, and then work towards reestablishing regulation. Really, we can do that in 3 to 5 minutes. That's possible. And so if we do that as we navigate our day, 3 or 4 times in our day, and very intentional moments, we get to a place where maybe we've spent about 20 minutes doing regulation, but wow, our stress level can dramatically decrease. So I just challenge you, let's not underestimate the power of, 5 minutes, giving ourselves 5 minutes to breathe, giving ourselves 5 minutes to focus on our self-talk, 5 minutes to maybe stretch and just loosen up our body, and the impact that might have on our day-to-day stress. So I hope this finds you well, and I will see you next time.